uh, uh, it's still quote unquote um, under or coming soon because this and that, the kids wouldn't get out, all this other stuff had to be done to fix and get it ready, but it was finally well, and then my property owner, she's going on a cruise. She's literally like in the middle of the ocean, and I can't call her or text her or anything. So, and she hates the whole DocuSign, so she wouldn't do that anyway. So we totally have to wait, until she gets back before we can really, do anything. So I've got it coming soon. It's going to go active on Thursday. She'll be home Saturday, and I wrote in the private notes just. That we'll consider all the offers on Monday, whatever the next Monday is.
You handled that just right.
But I've got guys calling me. There was a guy that showed up on her doorstep. He was actually looking for a house that was coming soon around the corner from her. He was going to meet his agent there, and he saw my sign as the first one in the neighborhood. He saw it, so he just assumed. And Margaret was out there, loading stuff up into the truck or whatever. And so they talked, and she showed him around.
Oh,
I know. So anyway, he actually made an offer, but it was Saturday. She was getting ready to leave, and I talked to her. I was like, it was a pretty good offer. I mean, we're listed for 290, and this guy offered 300. Just no due diligence, nothing. I mean, pretty much just straight 300. And I said to Margaret, I was like, that's a pretty good deal. But she couldn't do anything about it. She couldn't do DocuSign. I was actually out of town, and so she feels very uncomfortable with that. So I said, well, we're just gonna have to wait. But then the guy calls me back last night. I'm eating dinner, and he calls me himself, the actual, buyer, not the agent. The agent reached out to me, and I'm like, hey, I told him like, sorry, we can't do this, but she can't do DocuSign, blah, blah. So we're just gonna have to wait until she gets back. But the owner called, and he's like, I'll do anything. He upped his offer to 305, said no due diligence, whatever. He just wants this house. But it's just been crazy. And
oh,
I've and like five or six other agents have reached out. I mean, at 290, that's such a sweet spot. I mean, there's so many people
oh yeah.
interested, and the neighborhood, it's just really, really convenient to Woodstock, right off of Highway 92, Trickham Road.
Oh
It's
yeah.
super
Yeah.
great location. But
Well, I think you've positioned your seller in a very good position. And for those of you who are new, it's very inadvisable if you can avoid it. Now, this wasn't a case where you could, but to have the seller talking to a potential buyer,
right,
primarily because there's some phenomenon where when somebody comes to look at a home, most sellers will feel compelled to say, oh, well, yeah, I meant to get that door fixed and it sticks. Oh, and the light doesn't turn on in the pantry because
right. Well, the
you
funny
tend to
thing is,
just be like, oh,
yeah, I mean, I was afraid that she was going to give anybody the impression that she's desperate to get out and will take whatever.
yeah,
In
there's
fact,
that.
we already had an offer that was like way lowball, cash 278, and she did, not
Yeah.
interested in that, of course. But anyway, I'm not sure what we're supposed to be talking about on this call tonight, but
So what we have is we've been going from seller lead, and we're going all the way through the steps to closing and then follow up. So we've done the lead, how to talk to somebody at an open house.
mhm,
We've done or door knocking. We've done the pre-listing, and
mhm.
those are videos for those of you who are new that are in the private PC channel, the YouTube channel. And then we did the listing, and this week is now I have the listing. What's next? So I'm going to share my screen, and there's some things. So I'll just show you right quick. When I get a listing or a buyer, can you see that?
Kinda, yeah.
It's a manila folder, and it has a checklist on the front of it. And that way I can make sure that I have information about their house. I might have physical copies of the seller's property disclosure so that I can put some in the home. I might have the community association disclosure, but I've definitely got this checklist attached to the front.
Is
And
that in the Google Drive, Candace? That
yeah, Yeah, you know what? I'll post it. I'll post it. This is one from Robin's class that I took, but there's all kinds of checklists, and I actually don't follow this one exactly. I have one of my own that I like better, but I didn't have it printed out, so I wanted to just share with you. The whole idea is to do a checklist. And so you can, if you're, I'm old school, that's why I like to have things visual. If you want to do it online, you can definitely do it online, but I just like to have a manila folder in my hand in case there's no internet and I can see where I am.
That's cool.
So, oh, hang on, somebody's asking for the link. Give me 1 second, sorry about that. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. So let me share my screen here. So the very first thing that I do is I do the dual entry with the seller, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. For those of you who are new, if you go into command, which is agent.kw.com, and I know this is going to, for brand new agents, this is going to be a little bit like, what? But that's okay. You can ask questions and I'll slow down if I need to. This is interactive. So if I go too fast or you have questions about anything, please speak up. If you have comments about anything or anything you want to share, please speak up because it is a mastermind. So this is the dual entry. I'm not going to go into where I got it. It's in command and we'll do that. But everybody except unless you're brand new should know how to do that. Oh, goodness. We've got 3 more people joining us.
All right. Hey, Nadine, how you doing?
And everybody, I just want to introduce you to Rachel. Rachel just came into PC coaching today. We're so excited to have you. I didn't get a chance to welcome you in the WhatsApp chat, but we're so thrilled to have you here.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
So this is the dual. We're just starting for those of you who just jumped on. So we're talking about what you have a listing, what's next. So the very first thing I do is I sit down with the client or I call them on the phone. I make an appointment to call them on the phone and I fill out as much as I can from FMLS. So for instance, I'm going to use a listing that I have.
So that dual entry form you were showing us a second ago, that's just basically a form to fill out. So when you go in to put your listing into FMLS and GAMLS, you've got all the answers?
Yep, that's exactly what it is.
Okay.
So I will pre-populate, for instance, if I know my listings in Ormwood Park, I'll go over here and I'll say, oh, that's my listing, but I'll go over here and I'll be like, okay, so let me go in here and see what the school district is. I can fill all this in. I can go to realist in FMLS, which is right here, public records, and I can get a lot of information about the square footage. So if I go to,
so Candace, you mentioned something today at the start of Dustin's class about how you went on a listing presentation, but you took the information from the tax record and that you got lazy, you said. What should you have done? This going to like realist and
yeah. So what happens is tax records are often incorrect. So when you do the pre-listing, the very important part of pre-listing is to do a seller intake form. And that's to ask them questions about their home, verify the number of bedrooms it has. I will always send this to my clients as part of the pre-listing to say, could you verify some of this information? And in this case, I just got really busy and I got lazy and I didn't spend the extra time to do it. So it was, I'm not sure that that's exactly why I didn't get the listing because they haven't listed yet and I'm still in contact with them. It could have been the pricing. It could have been a lot of things, but I'm blaming that on myself because that was bad practice. And that's a one-off for me. I never do that, but it was just a one-off.
So anyway, you actually send them like in your pre-qualification, you'll send them a copy of this realist.
I do.
print
do.
out and ask them to verify. Okay, good.
Mhm,
Thank
I do. So here I can see that the square footage is 1320. I can see that the house was built in 1920. It says it's 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. So when I confirm that, then I go back into my dual entry. Can you see that? And I'll
Mhm.
fill in as much as I can for them. And then where I need their help, and do you all want me to go through this really line by line?
Well, not maybe, obviously,
Some of it,
address, zip code, county, I think we could figure that out. But, if there are some things that I find interesting, FMLS area, things like that not everybody's going to know where to find right away.
so they're doing away with FMLS area.
Okay. Well, never
Georgia
mind.
MLS still has it. So
Yeah.
again, what I would do in Georgia MLS is I would go to, we have two MLS where we're required to list a home.
hmm
So if I go to,
you. Is it just me or do other people find Georgia MLS kind of cumbersome to
I
work?
can't stand it.
me either.
I
I'll
thought
be
it was
honest, I've never even looked at it really.
So I would,
You're in for a treat.
so I would go in and I would grab this from another listing in that community.
Okay.
And that's where I get the Georgia MLS. I don't,
Sure.
that's
a
the way
great
I know.
solution. That's
Yeah,
cool.
that's the way I know to do it. So let's go back to this dual entry. Some other things that are kind of interesting is like you have to put in your list date, your FMLS expiration date. Be very aware that some of these dates can't change. You cannot modify them once you put them in. So be sure you're entering them correctly. On this form, obviously, this is just a form.
Right.
But then you would go to the FMLS commission and it's typically a percentage, typically 3%.
Can I ask you to clarify what the expiration date is? Is that the expiration date of your listing agreement?
Yes,
Okay, thank
you
you.
can always, so if you look, and I'll show history, but if you go into history, you can always see that a home was, let me go right there right now. So if I go into history,
Oh,
I can see the history for this home. And that's right up here. All I would do is just go listing. I can see tax, I can see photos, open house, history, but I can see what's happened.
What's a
Um,
typical expiration date? Is it like 3 months after you get the listing? What is the normal?
So for a home that's like under 600, 800, I would do 6 months. That's just
Okay.
because now sometimes people want 30 days. And if I'm having a difficult time with somebody or they're a FSBO, I'll put a special stip in my listing agreement that says, seller can cancel this agreement at any time with 30 days written notice. Something a coach taught me means I've got 30 days to try and sell the property. That's up to you if you want to do that.
And do you ever put anything in there about recouping money that you've spent?
No, but I'm going to start doing what Justin does. He has a 695 admin fee, and on your listing agreement underneath where it says, okay, oh, that's the addendum. Wait a minute, I've got to pull in the listing. So on the listing agreement where it says commission, got my all caps on this. Okay. Well, here, I'll just put it under the buyer brokerage, even though we're doing a listing, it's the same thing, but wow. Oh, there it was, exclusive. Here it is. Okay. So just give it a minute to load. So underneath here, where it says right here, commission,
Mhm.
I would put 3%.
Mhm.
Or 6%, and then 3% is split with the broker, or 7%. Some people do, but right under here, I'd put $695 administrative fee. You can certainly do that.
So you can have 2 checks in that section.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
hey Candace,
Mhm.
Would you, is that a straight fee, or would you offer to, especially at our level, would you offer to give that back at closing?
So,
Because once we close, like,
well, you could, this is what I'm going to say. This is your business and you can handle it any way you want to. So I'm just going to say anything that Dustin teaches, anything that Bill teaches, anything that John Serrano teaches or Michelle Slater teaches, I try to learn from them. Aubrey, Robin, I mean, you just learn something from different people. And so Dustin said before he had his team, it was his Porsche fund. So that's depending on how you feel about that. But now it's actually his transaction coordinator fee. So if you're going to hire a transaction coordinator, I think it's a fair thing to say in there. And it doesn't have to be $695. It could be, if your marketing costs are $300, you could put $300 in there. And you could offer to say, when we close, I'll give that back to you. You definitely could do that. That's strictly up to you.
yeah, because I know I'm going to get some people saying, well, isn't that what your 3% is for? To cover all that. So that's
So
just trying to take an objection. I can hear it
Yeah.
coming.
yeah. And you can also, there's a place in here where there's a place in here. There's a place in here where you can put like, you can put a special step saying, that if the seller terminates this listing for any reason, seller agrees to pay the following marketing fees. You could do something like that. If you haven't, so this is what I think about objections. Objections are not really objections. Objections are somebody who wants to get things out of the way so they can work with you. If you think about them like that, so you just say, this is something that will never happen as long as we get your home sold, and I'm confident I can get your home sold. This is an attitude. This is an attitude of, you just say it matter of fact. So for instance, we get so fearful of asking for money, and it gets in our head that we're asking for too much or we're not worth it. Well, guess what? We're worth it. We are worth it. So if you have the attitude of, I've got a $695 transaction fee, it's to cover all administrative costs.
Yeah.
And if they say, well, what's that? Then you say, oh, it's the cost of doing business. The transaction coordinator who does infinite number of things to get your property to get your property listed and to get all the documents correct and everything like that, from contract to close, make sure we get to closing smoothly. It also can cover some things like pre-listing things. It can cover anything that you would hand over to an administrative assistant. And here's what I'm going to suggest from the get-go. I would start making a list and add to it every single day or every single week of things that you don't want to do or you don't enjoy doing, because those can be handed off.
Yeah.
But keep that list, because when you go to hire somebody, you might not remember. It's kind of like when somebody buys a brand new home, they typically will have a 9-month walkthrough where they get to point out anything that's, nail pops or cracks in the, the sheetrock tape or the drywall tape, maybe a cabinet door, the hinge isn't working right. But if they wait till the 9th month to list all those things, they'll miss a whole bunch. So I always advise, keep a list in one of your kitchen drawers and add to it every time you notice something, because you will not remember it the 9th month, and you want to make sure you've got everything covered. Same thing if you're going to hire a virtual assistant or an executive assistant, in person, you want to make sure you've got a list of things that you don't enjoy doing that you need help with at some point. And it may not be right now, but
One more question about the admin fee. Do you get that up front, or do you add that to
well,
your
it says
fee at
here,
closing?
what it says here is this is at closing of the contract.
Okay.
So it says right there that it's at closing. In the special stip, it would be if this terminates. So
Yeah, my concern would be like dishing out money for a photographer and then a FISBO,
Yes.
the contract's up in 30 days. So
exactly.
I want to make sure I recoup that. if they're
Yeah.
not gonna stick with me. to
Yeah,
put-
exactly. So you just figure what those costs are. And I mean, for instance, it can happen that somebody doesn't get the job. I mean, I've had that happen. Somebody is all ready to go. They want to list their house. I mean, we've got the listing sign and they call me and go, it happened during the pandemic. The job went away.
So
So
we
they have
put that in a
Oh.
special,
Yeah. So you put that in a special step that if it cancels. Now, in that case, I didn't, and I don't typically charge an admin fee because but in that case, I wish I had. So.
Well, one more question about that.
What's
So,
the,
and I've been in business a long time, like, so they terminate and they owe you $695. Do you ever anticipate trying to chase somebody down for that? And
No,
not being
I would
able to
never
get it?
fight over that. I would never fight over that.
Is it just a deterrent for not terminating, or?
Well, there'll be some people who will pay it and some people who won't.
Got it.
I would never chase anybody for that. That's not my personality.
Yeah, mine either.
And
Yeah. Okay.
I would be more likely to just take it off as a tax, a tax deduction.
Got it. Okay.
Candice, what would be the verbiage for that?
So you could say, seller agrees to pay X number of dollars at any time. And I'm not saying you need to do this. Please don't say, this is not something I do. But I just want you to know that you could say seller to pay X number of dollars if this listing terminates to cover cost of marketing. Okay, let's move on. So here on the dual entry, you're going to put in the number of bathrooms up. You have to put zeros in FMLS and Georgia MLS. If there's not a half bath upstairs, you have to put 00, maybe one bedroom, maybe the main, there's a bedroom, maybe one half bath and one full bath, and lower, maybe there's no basement, so you put 000. And then over here, you would put resale, fixer upper, new construction, updated, remodeled, to be built, under construction, all of those. Certified builder, that's something if they're just built their home or in their neighborhood with a certified builder, you can look up the builder and find out if they're certified. You're gonna put if there's a home warranty. For instance, a lot of my listings right now are 1920s, and so yes, I advise them that we're going to get a home warranty on the home during the listing period, and we'll transfer that to the buyer at the time of closing. And then most of the time, the acreage source comes from tax records, and so you have a place for that public record. If they have had an appraisal, maybe you had comps that were difficult, and they decided to get an appraiser, you could say appraiser, and the same Georgia MLS duplicates. So if there's an HOA, you want to get this information. And if there's an association fee. So if there's swim tennis, if there's an initiation fee, if you know that. If you don't know this yet, don't worry about it. You can always come back in and add it. And I don't know what that is. I've never used it. So, and then down here, this is where you're going to write your description. I like to go in and look at other agents' descriptions and see what they write. So if I go here, I can see bright, charming Ormwood Park bungalow. And so they're highlighting that it's 1 mile from Beltline, South Side, minutes from Grant Park with Farmers Market, Zoo Atlanta, Ormwood Square, the Beacon, Madison. They've highlighted, because the home is small, they've highlighted living in the area, right? So I'm going to go in and see what some other ones in this neighborhood say. And I might rip off and duplicate, which we call R&D.
I've done that for all of my listings. I've
Yep.
found houses nearby and read them and said, "Oh, I like that little phrase and this and that." I've totally stolen from every one of them around mine.
Yeah, I mean, it's if copywriting is not or copy content is not your thing, absolutely. So and then you're going to write in your private remarks, which is the alarm code is agents. There's an alarm. It's on the wall by the front door. The alarm code is such and such and such to disarm and such to arm. Please make sure to turn off all lights. All offers will be acknowledged and reviewed on Monday at 5 p.m. You can put just about anything in there. Agents, Please give 2 hours notice. Seller has dogs. That's just information for the agent. The public does not see that. Okay, and then your directions. And I say this, please don't say, please use GPS. There's a couple of reasons why. One, if I'm looking in it for a buyer client in a particular area and I see, please use GPS, I might skip over that because it makes extra work for me as the buyer's agent. The other thing is sometimes there are 2 ways to get to a property and one is not as desirable as the other. I want to control that. Or I might want to say, might want to direct them the most expedient route. So if it's to highlight how close it is to 400, for instance. So I might say from 400 instead of from Holcomb Bridge Road, I'm going to say from 400, exit 7, something like that. Okay, and here's where I'm going to be with my clients, and they're going to give me all the information. I'll send this to them and I'll say, look, we've got 4 things we can check here. Is there anything that's striking you as something we should put in? We've got up to 1 here, so we know it's fee simple if it's a single family home. There's a separate one for attached. Oh, I do have the attached. Sorry, I've got the attached. There's one for detached and there's one for attached. And I'll just go over each of these items with them and it tells me what I can check. And I'll try and make it as close to the property as possible. I don't showboat a lot, meaning if it's a family, like this little listing, the 2-bedroom, 1-bath listing, it's got a living room. It doesn't have a family room. It doesn't have a great room. And I don't want to set that expectation and have a buyer get there and go, geez, this is just a living room. So I'd rather they know what it is. That's just my personal preference. So I'll go over all this with them. And then that gives me the ability to add, edit, and matrix. And so what I do is I go right here to add, edit. And I can add new, or I can edit an existing listing. And if I go to add new, it's going to walk me through. It's kind of a wizard. And I'm going to look for the county. I'm not going to go through this whole thing because it's self-explanatory, unless you have questions about it. But I will go to the tax records, for instance, and I would get the tax ID right there. And I would put that in. And then I would say, I would put in this and I would put in this, and then I would say, fill from realist tax, but you've got to put the county in first.
Do so you actually do use the owner's name in there?
No, actually, I apologize, Michael. Thank you for catching that. I'd put in.
Yeah, I just do the street number, street
Yeah,
name.
No, you're right. I
I
don't.
leave that alone. I don't want them looking them up.
Exactly. So, okay. So I can say fill and it'll fill everything. I'm not going to submit this. I can choose coming soon or active. And then I can go to location. And I'm going to, now you still have to, oh no, it's not required. Oh, it is still required. You have to put in the area. So I would just go to another listing and figure out what the area is. Then I would go to another listing and fill out what the elementary, middle school, and high school. I'd be using my dual entry at this point. It's got all that information. This is my listing information. And see, list date cannot be modified after initial input. So you want to make sure your list date, that's important because it shows how many days a home has been on the market. So if you list it on, like if Michael had gone ahead and edited this into FMLS and his seller says, I'm going on a cruise for a week. Well, she sits on a week without really having showings.
That's right.
So you want to make sure you've got that list date. It's the importance of the list date is that the sooner you can get it sold, the better it looks for you, the better it looks to your seller. And it also increases the excitement of somebody of a buyer or a buyer's agent coming on the market.
So Candace, is there a rule as far as how much time you have to enter it into FMLS once you get a listing agreement? Because I thought there was something in FMLS that said you only had a certain number of days.
You've got 48 hours after you put the sign in the yard to get it in FMLS. I know that.
Thank you for that. So not once you get the listing signed, but on the listing agreement, there's a place that says the marketing will commence on such and such a date. And you need to get it in pretty quickly after that. So for instance, I took a listing, my optimistic seller thought he'd have his house renovated in April. I took the listing in April and he kept saying, it's not going to be ready. It's not going to be ready. It's not going to be ready. We finally went live in August. So I didn't enter that listing into FMLS until I was for sure that he was going to be ready to sell.
But like Michael said, it has to be within 48 hours of putting the sign in the yard,
I do
even if
not-
that's a coming soon sign.
I do not know that rule, Donna. That's something I would ask FMLS. I
Bill
can tell
told me
you.
that for what it's
Who
worth.
did?
Bill
Bill?
Linkwald.
Okay. What
Yeah, and I think it's in the FMLS rules and regulations. When you go to FMLS and you go to that section, I think it's actually in there.
Well, and the point is that in order to, you want to get this property on the market. Once your seller is ready to go, you want to get this on the market fast. And the reason why is because that's your service to the seller, right? You don't want to sit out there and be like, oh, I'll get to it next week. I'll get to it next week. First of all, you'll get a violation. And then secondly, you're not doing a great job for your seller. Good questions, guys, and good comments. Okay, I would get the sign and lock box. I would have the sellers prepare the home for professional photography. I have my own thing that I send, but let me see it. No, he doesn't have it here. But it's called Clear the Clutter. And so I've typically had a conversation with my sellers at the time that they sign the listing, and I'll be like, I'm so excited to get started working for you and partnering with you. Oh, and he's got a pre-shoot checklist. So mine says remove the clutter. It's similar to this, and I can post this because he's nice enough to let me have a copy. But it just talks about how to get the home ready for professional photography. The conversation that I have with sellers often is we need to neutralize the home so that it is a blank canvas so that anybody could come into this property and see themselves living here. I had a client who was a figure skater, and she had one room that was dedicated to all her trophies, all the photographs. Her skates were hanging on the wall, different size skates, pictures of people that she had coached. And it was in a secondary bedroom, but I did say, this is really your personality in this home, and it's awesome. I love looking at it, but we want somebody to come in here and see this as a child's bedroom or a guest bedroom. So she removed everything and packed it away. And the other thing I say is when you take down your baby's photos that you love and you're, just taking all your personal things off the wall and off the shelves and you're packing them away, you're doing two things for yourself. One, you're starting to get ready to move, which is great because then you don't have to do it all at once. And secondly, it's like Christmas when you open those boxes back up and you pull those things out. So just know that it's just for a short period of time, and you'll be so excited when you get to open them up again. But the most important thing is we want buyers to come in. We want buyers to come in here and see themselves living in this property. And the other conversation that I have with them is buyers typically will buy based on emotion. So if your closet is neat and organized, it might be the pain point for a buyer that their closet is just completely crammed full of things. And they say to themselves in their head, wow, if I move into this home, I could have an organized closet. I'm going to get organized. Or if they're moving from a home where the kitchen is not functional, not really functional for entertaining, and your kitchen is absolutely spacious and there's not a lot of clutter on the counters, they say to themselves, ooh, I'm going to entertain in this kitchen, or I'm going to learn how to cook some great meals, or I'm going to have craft time with my kids. So I have that conversation with them too and help them to understand why it's important to declutter, take the personal things off. And then I also tell them two other things. I say 67% of buyers look at a home in photographs before they ever step foot in your home.
Oh, yeah.
Really important to have professional photographs. And a professional photographer typically is not going to move a trash can. They're typically not going to move a dirty towel. So you want to make this as much like a model home as you can. If they don't have any idea what I'm talking about, sometimes I will take them on a model home tour so they can get an idea. Builds the relationship. little bit of extra time, but I get their cooperation because they start to visualize and see what I mean.
Mhm.
And
Candace, do you ever utilize a stager to do a staging consultation with your seller?
yes,
Where
that's
they
part,
have that conversation?
yes, that's part of my pre-listing or part of my listing services is they get an hour consultation with the stager. It's up to the stager to sell the services. And I mean, staged homes sell a lot more quickly than homes that are not staged, especially vacant homes. So,
Candace,
and it's,
sorry, I've
yep,
got
go
to
ahead.
run. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow.
Oh, Michael, thank you. Okay.
Yep, sorry, I got to run. See
Yep.
y'all.
So, boy, I wonder if we're going to get
Hi,
through the
Michael.
whole thing tonight. So I'll have that conversation with them as well. I order the photography next. Are you all seeing the listing next steps? Okay, I'll order the photography next. The other thing I tell them is, this is a little bit later in the transaction, but appraisers are people too, and they respond subjectively to the condition of a home. Whether they know it or not, they do. So for instance, if they walk in a home and the home, maybe it's a stretch to get that appraisal where you want it to be, and they walk in the home and the home is pristine and the home is really staged well and it's just looks fantastic, they're going to be maybe a little more biased to stretching it a little bit because of condition. It's a subjective kind of thing. So I always advise my sellers to make sure their home is show ready for the appraisal. Okay, so back to this though. I order the photography. I start pre-marketing the minute I get that listing agreement signed, whether it's going on the market right away or not. I start pre-listing. I'll post on, so I wait on social media until it's going to go live, but I'll start calling my database and sphere and saying, hey, I've got a listing that's coming. I just wanted you to know about it first. And I also wanted to know if you know anybody who might be interested. So I do that. That's prospecting. That's one hack serves two purposes. First, it keeps me top of mind in their, as a realtor in their mind. And secondly, I am marketing the home. Most agents do not prospect their listings. And I think that's a disservice to the seller. A lot of agents will put it in FMLS and MLS and let it sit there. And in this market, people are, it's a little disconcerting to me that I've seen listings out there that have no photography. I've seen listings that sometimes not even have a sign. I talked to my sign person and she said, some agents are not even ordering signs for their listing, or they'll call and order it and then they'll cancel it. And they won't ever put a sign in the yard because the homes are selling so quickly. And my answer to that is, our market is going to change. It's already starting to change a little bit. And if you don't have any proof of the advertising you've done to show on a listing appointment or a pre-listing, that's going to be, it's short-sighted, I would say, to save money and not hire a photographer because you're going to get umpteen contracts the first day. It's short-sighted. Still do your photography.
I hear you saying too, Candace, is as we're doing this, we should also be creating kind of like a portfolio for
Absolutely.
future. Okay.
Absolutely. There have been times when I've gone into a listing appointment and I've shown, let me go to search. Go back. Let's see if I can find mine.
Something Jan taught me was you can go on the dashboard and there's a section where you can put in a street and it'll pull up everything that was on that street right from the dashboard.
Right, trying to find, yeah. So these are, okay, here's the listing. So I would go on and show what my photographs look like versus somebody who did one with their cell phone. And I love this house. But anyway, I would go on and I would sometimes show, if I were in a competition, I would say, here's the importance of professional photography. Look at this listing. And then I would find one that had terrible photographs and, oh my gosh, they're out there. where somebody just did a snap with their cell phone and it wasn't even straight. Just, or they're too small. They're too small. So when you open this up, it's like, it's got white all around it and it's this big, so you can't really see. So, okay, so let me get back to my document. And yes, that was a different market where we had negotiations. Okay, so you're going to enter an FMLS and Georgia MLS. Now there's something called Ditto. So if you enter into FMLS, you'll get a prompt and it'll say, do you want to enter this using Ditto? And you say Ditto and it'll copy everything over to Georgia MLS. So you don't have to do it twice. Then you're going to set up showing time. You can also set up feedback questions in showing time. And I'm not going to get into, I won't get into that. I'll do that as a separate thing because we're almost 15 minutes and I want to make sure we get this. I set up Supra. So I'll assign Supra to the key box and I'll assign a key box to Supra. And so what that looks like is if you go to your Supra E key, I can go to my key boxes up here and I can add a key box up here. So I can assign it to a listing. And that means that anytime anybody goes in or out of that home, I can see who's gone in or out. It'll happen pretty much anyway if the key box is programmed to you, but this is just an extra step and it helps me keep track of my key boxes and where they are. So there's a number on the side of the iBox. Okay, so you're going to upload the listing docs to the MLSs, and that's like your seller's property disclosure, your community association disclosure. You're going to create a Facebook ad, or you're going to have somebody else create a Facebook ad. Let's see what this one looks like. And we do have a fantastic contract to close person and a listing entry person. Let me go to Facebook here. Let's see, there should be, I think he's posting in here. Okay, yeah, see, he's posting the open houses in here. He's posting the just listed or open house. I once in a while do a video, but anyway, you want to get your ad created. Nadine created a really nice one. So you used a template, Nadine?
Yes, I use one from Command.
Okay, so there's templates in Command as well. Let me get back to my list. Any questions so far? Okay, so this is schedule an open house. I like to, well, right now in this house that's sitting on a busy road, I'm doing a lot of open houses because that's tends to be when we get our showings when that happens. But upload, and by the way, I'm doing an event. You all are going to meet the vendor tomorrow that's helping sponsor it. I wouldn't be able to do it without him, or I wouldn't do it without him because I'd be coming out of pocket, but it's in his marketing budget. So he's helping me with the videographer and he's helping me with the barbecue, the supplies for the barbecue. So and you all are invited. You're all invited to the barbecue. You just have to park at the Kroger and walk 6 houses.
So how are you promoting that, Candace?
So I'll start. I've got Chris, the listing guy from the Churchville group, is creating the open house. So I'm actually going to post that. He'll post that in my Facebook page. I'll start calling my database and my sphere. I'll start calling and I'll invite. I have past clients who come to open houses just to say hi. But it also lets them know that I'm in real estate and it keeps me top of mind. The other thing I'll do is I've already identified the agents that work down in that area. I'll be calling them and saying, hey, listen, you don't have to come. We'll respect your relationship with your buyer clients, but please send over anybody you think might be interested. Do you have anybody? So those are some of the activities being proactive that a lot of agents don't do, but it'll separate you from the average agent, and it's best practices. Create a Facebook ad. oh, I'm sorry, schedule the open house, create a landing page for the home. You can do that in Command as well. Sellers love that. Reverse prospecting. I wanted to share with you a little bit about reverse prospecting. Has anybody done reverse prospecting? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my matrix. I go down here to my hit counters. This is also something when I send my marketing reports that I'll, that when I send my marketing reports, this is good information. They all go on Zillow to see how many views they've had, but this is a little bit more in depth. So I can see that there have been 324 client portals. So that means 324 people have seen this client or have been sent it. 196 have viewed it. 2 have favorited it. Client possibilities are 4. And there have been 338 auto emails that went out because an agent set somebody up on an auto email with this kind of criteria. Previous 14-day views were 12. Agent published views were 2. 6 agents rejected this. And 929 agents have had their eyes on this. That's great stuff for a seller to know. So if I click here, I see where it says reverse prospect. So I can go here and these are all the agents. Look at 2 people have loved this. So guess who I'm going to call and invite to the open house? I'm going to call, these are ones that kind of liked it, you know, so I'm going to invite all of them. I'm going to reach out to all these agents as I can get to them. Look how many there are. All these agents have somebody who has seen this property. I'm going to follow up with all these agents and just say, hey, is this home a good fit for your client? Do you know anybody else who might be interested? By the way, we're having an open house. So this is, I think, and I'm also going to look on here to see if there's anybody I know. But I'll do that later. But anyway, so reverse prospecting is a really valuable piece of prospecting that you can do for your listing. And then let's see here.
How did you get to that step again, Candace?
I go to, you have to have a listing to do this, but I go to my matrix. I go down here to my hit counters. And then I have to click here and the reverse prospect will show up. What I do for my sellers right now, I've got one listing that's not going to come on the market till probably the end of October. This is land. It's in a trust. I reach out to him. He doesn't want me marketing to him. This is a repeat seller. He's like, Candace, I know you work. You don't need to send me a marketing update. I don't want to read it and I get too many emails. So I don't send them marketing updates. But when I do, if I have sellers that maybe were a referral or so, I'll just use my snipping tool and I'll copy and paste this. And then I'll have a little breakdown of what it means. So let me see if in my email, I'm going to stop share so you don't see, in case there's an email that's personal. Okay. Here we go. Okay, share screen. So I send this out on Tuesdays. What I am doing for my sellers right now is I go into, and I'll show you this next, but this is what my marketing report looks like. I give them kind of feedback. I tell them what's happening, what I've been doing. I'm always letting them know that I'm working on their behalf. This week I focused on prospecting 10.2 hours. I also reverse prospected. There are now 173 agents that have a contact who could be compatible with your home. Reposted your home on Facebook, reposted the website for your home on Twitter, reposted a message about your home on Instagram. Here's the views. And this explains what the views mean. And then showings, when showing this week, no feedback available. This was several years ago. So the other thing that I do, this is my Tuesday, this is my Friday message. And then my Tuesday message that I still do right now is I'll go to the neighborhood And I'll put in the neighborhood. Like in this case, I'll put in, and I'll select all, but I'm going to change these to be from the last 7 days. So it captured all 7 days. I want to see what's happened in the past 7 days. Come here. Once they're highlighted. And so I can see there's 71 matches, but that's 180. So I've got to change that. Let me change them all. So I go in here and I do this. Funny. There we go. And I did go in here and I change this. Okay, so I've got 13 matches. There's 13 changes here. So some of them are going to be price drops. That's what that red arrow means. There's some new listings that came on. This one's been on the market. This is days on market right here. This one's been on for 4 days. This one came on 11 days ago. This one is coming soon. This one's been on the market 43 days. This one's been on 77. There's a new listing that came on 5 days ago. One's for 6 days ago and one for 4 days ago. And then the other listings have been sitting there for a while because this neighborhood has taken a while. Oh, and this one went active under contract, and so did this one. So I'll snip this as well. And what I mean by that is the snipping tool. That's a dining chandelier for one of my clients that's doing his renovation. But I'll use the snipping tool and I'll just capture it. And then I put it in an email and I'll send it to my seller on Tuesday. And I'll say, here's what happened, because they want to know what happened over the weekend. And I can't do it on Monday, so I send it on Tuesday.
Where is that snipping tool? Is that something you just
If you go
downloaded?
to your search, and just put snipping tool, it looks like that. It's on most Windows computers.
Okay, thanks.
And then I just pin it to my taskbar because I use
And
it.
you
a lot.
could pin it, you could right click it, Donna, and pin it to your taskbar. So it's easy to always find. and
Okay,
add.
thank you.
So, okay, so here, so I send the neighborhood update on Tuesdays for the last 7 days, and I send the marketing report on Fridays. I send feedback as it comes in on showings. I don't, I have sellers that I talk to every day, and I have sellers I talk to once a week, and I have sellers I talk to once a month. It all depends on who they are and what they want. Some people I've got that land that I've had listed forever. They're not reasonable about the price, but they want it to stay on the market, and I'm not doing any marketing for it. I told them, I said, I'm not doing any marketing because it's just so overpriced. When I first started off, I spent some time calling developers, and they were all like, too high, but they're not willing to, they would rather wait and relist and relist and relist. And that listing I take for a year. So I've had it for 2 years now. And eventually when they get realistic, it'll sell, or maybe the prices will go up in that area. So land sometimes takes longer to sell. I follow up with an agent. I always follow up with the agents who showed. I thank them for showing. That's so important. We're building a community. How we treat each other is really important. So if I say to you that I'm going to show up at a certain time on a certain date and I can't make it, I'm going to give you the courtesy of a text or a phone call saying, hey, something's come up. It's my bad. I'm so sorry. But if with these agents who show, they've taken time away from their family. We all know what that feels like. So I always say, thank you so much for showing. And most of the time, they'll respond better to text than they will a phone call or a voicemail. So I don't leave voicemails for agents, but I'll send a text saying, thank you so much for showing 1061 Moreland. Really, really appreciate it. What did your client think about it? Is there anything we can do to make it more appealing? Or is your client interested? And that's for agents who don't send feedback. A lot of times agents will go ahead and send feedback. And that looks like, I'm not sure if I can get to it in showing time. Well, it's loading, but a lot of times you'll get a feedback in your, let me see if I can get it in my email just a sec. Stop share. Are you learning anything? Is this helpful?
It's really helpful. Thank you.
So here's feedback received on, okay, so here's what feedback looks like. So I just used the standard questions in Supra. So it says, is your client listed? Maybe, good. Your client's opinion of the price, just right. Best, worst. They gave it a 4. They didn't give me any recommendations. So I always call and say thank you, or I text and say thank you for the feedback. Okay. All right, so there's a whole bunch more steps, but then it has to do with, let me get that back. A whole bunch of steps, but right now where we are is we've got an offer, and I'll go over next week what happens in the transaction, once you're in the transaction. So we're managing offers. I'll share a spreadsheet with you that I use if you have multiple offers. Are there any questions about tonight or any comments or anything that you'd like to share?
I'd also like to hear at some point what you do for your seller along the way here. If you do any kind of surprise and delight, anything, just
yeah.
make this like a 5-star experience for your seller.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for bringing that up. That's something that I do with my sellers. Unless like this person that he's told me I'm his realtor for life. He's bought and sold numerous homes with me. And so in fact, he's already given me one steel guitar because I told him my goal when I turned 80 was to learn how to play steel guitar. He's given me a Fender. He collects guitars. He's bringing another one to closing on Wednesday. So absolutely do I surprise and delight them. One thing I did was we're selling his parents' house, and he's a car guy, so he'd stored all the fancy stuff for his Maserati and his Porsche in this garage, and it was chock full. So I have some friends who if you need junk removal, these guys are the best. They are so professional. They're so polite. They're fun. They're good at what they do. They're strong. They'll donate. They always donate first if they can donate. They help hoarders. They're amazing. So I fixed it up for him to have them come over and help him because I knew it was overwhelming. And I knew they would hit it off because the junk guys, it's a dad and 2 sons, and then the wife runs the business. The sons negotiated with one of the sellers who wanted to get rid of a Corvette that needed renovating. The boys negotiated. They're like, one's in high school and one's in college. They negotiated to buy that car with their own money, and they renovated it. So they all hit it off. And so absolutely. Sometimes I'll just call them up and say, hey, let's go to dinner, my treat. And we go. So just different things. They're not cookie people, so I don't send them cookies. So I'll send them, I'll just send them like flowers or something like that. But yeah, I do love to surprise and delight. And typically that happens when due diligence is over. It'll happen at the listing. I always send a handwritten thank you note when I get the listing. I should put that on here. That's the very first thing. I always, even with my sellers that I've already worked with a bunch, handwritten thank you. And mine typically says, dear Joe and Michelle, I just wanted to say thank you for the privilege of partnering with you to sell your home. I'm so excited to get to work for you. And please know I'm here for any questions that I can answer. And that's what I say in my handwritten note. I vary it up a little bit, but that's basic. I always say the privilege of partnering with you. I always say privilege and partner. So that's pretty much it for tonight. Any questions at all before we go?
That was really helpful. Thank you,
I'm
Candace.
so glad. I'm so glad. Thank you all for being on here.
Thanks,
If
Candace.
You're welcome. In the meantime, if you have any questions or you have a listing or you're going to go on a listing appointment, just feel free to reach out and give me a call and make sure that you do the seller intake, even if it's uncomfortable. It's like Dustin said in his pre-listing today, that sometimes we avoid doing things because we're afraid they're going to change their mind and say, oh, you know what, we're not going to, if you call and say, can you tell me a little bit about your house? And he's, the very first question that he has Marie ask, his listing specialist, is, when I come over to, he wants to make sure they know it's a listing appointment. And all of us who have been in the business for some time have had to figure out that sometimes we've gone on a listing appointment and they just thought we were just looking at the house to give them a value, right? Or they just thought we were previewing the house and it wasn't a listing appointment. They were surprised. So the very first expectation on his intake form, and I'll post those because he gave them to us today, is if I come over on Tuesday night, we've scheduled an appointment. When I come over on Tuesday night and you feel comfortable with everything that I say and we can agree on a price, will you be signing the listing documents that night, or will you list with me that night? Are you planning to list with me that night? Oh boy, is that an uncomfortable question, because they always say no. Always, 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 almost always. Don't even worry about that. You just want them to know that it's a listing appointment. That's the whole purpose for that question. And then you're going to ask them questions about your house. The questions I typically ask that I always ask, except for this one stupid occasion, is I'll ask them about their home. I'll say, tell me about your home. Tax record says it's got 4 bedrooms, 3 baths. And then they'll say either, yep, that's right, or no, that's not right. And I'll say, how, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the condition of your home? And they'll tell you. And then I'll say, can you tell me about any upgrades you've made in the last 5 years? And if they say, oh, nothing, then I'll say, in the last 10 years, if they've lived in their home that long. And if they say nothing, then I know maybe the home is going to be a little outdated and we're going to have to price accordingly. And I just go down and I just verify all those. And then at the listing appointment, I do the same thing Dustin does, except I do mine a little bit differently, as you heard last week, is I want to make sure that they know that their needs are important to me. So when you walk into a listing, typically they want to show you the home. And I always say, you know what, I want to see your home. It's real important to me. But first, I'd like to sit down and make sure I understand exactly what your needs are and make sure that I'm a good fit and you're a good fit and that we can, that I understand how to strategically work with you, and because you're important to me. So then we sit down at the table, a kitchen or a dining room table, and then we go through the listing and I'll verify all of the things that they told me over the phone on that seller intake. I take that in and I'll verify everything on that. And it lets them know first that I was listening. And then secondly, it lets them know they're important to me. And also it verifies the information. So it's a good practice to get into. All right, guys, I hope you have a great evening.
Can I ask one last favor? Can you share your emails, your neighborhood update, and your
Oh, my
marketing?
marketing? Oh, absolutely. I'll be glad to. And you can tweak them and make them better for sure.
Okay,
And-
thank
Yep.
Candace, one question for me
Yep.
too.
Okay.
So the intake form,
Uh-huh.
where do I get that from?
So I'm going to post the one that Dustin uses, but in the Google Drive, if you go to, this is what I do. Let me go here.
And did you say you're going to post the packets that Dustin gave us today? Because I told Nadine I was going to share them with her. Are you just going to go ahead and post those for everyone?
I will. It'll be tomorrow, but I'll post those tomorrow.
Okay.
So if I go to, this is what I do. I go to Bill's email that he's not sending anymore because nobody read it. But I'll go here. He has a PC resource list, but I'll go to, and here's another good one. I have a seller now what that's already been there. But here's access to the private Google Drive. He's got links to that. And if you go in here, you can go to seller intake. Here it is, seller intake sheet. There's one in there.
Okay.
And I'll post this. This is a good one. I just like that first question first about will you list with me, so that they know it's a listing appointment. But this
Okay.
is there as well. And I'll post those other ones tomorrow.
Okay, great.
Okay. I hope you all have a great evening. Go get
Thanks,
the things if you
Candace.
haven't already.
Thanks, Candice. Are you going to
Thank
share
you so
that
much.
Word document with us as well? That little checklist that you had?
I'll share the checklist. I'm going to do all of it tomorrow, but I'll share the checklist. I'll share my weekly marketing email. I'll share the do I need to share the reverse prospecting process?
Well, I made a note of it, so I'm not sure
Okay.
if you need to.
Okay. Okay. And I'll share the intake form that Dustin uses and
Okay.
the declutter your home kind of thing too.
Candice, I need to schedule some time with you.
Okay. So tomorrow I've got time from 3:15 to 4.
You know, I can't
And-
do that time.
And
Okay.
after that, what time do you get off, Nadine? I forget.
4.
4. Okay. So let's shoot for like 5 p.m.
Oh, 5 p.m. Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
Does that work?
It does. Because I have the role play 4 to 5, so that's
Okay.
fine.
Do you need a break in there? We could do 5:15.
No, that's fine.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to put it on my calendar. Ugh, not doing that very well. Okay. It's done. I hope everybody has a great evening. Thank you so much for being
Thanks
on
again.
here.
Thank
Makes
you,
me happy.
Candace.
I hope you learned a lot. What I always say is go out, make a mess, and we'll figure it out, okay? You've got a safety net here. If you go out and your first day, you get a listing or you get a buyer, don't worry about it. Just say, you know what? Call Bill, call Candace. Don't call Bill tomorrow. Call me tomorrow on Wednesday because he's off. But call us. We've got a safety net. You've got mentors. Just go out and make a mess and we'll take care of it. We won't let you fail.
Perfect. I love
Okay,
making
thank you.
messes.
Thank you,
Make a mess.
Candace.
All right. Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.